class. So we are now with your cellular compounds, which is the second part of your, which is on your second module. Okay, so these are the objectives of this module. After the completion of this chapter, the student should be able to first discuss the properties of water. Second, describe how water acts as an acids and bases. Number 3, explain the buffer. Number 4, enumerate the 4 macromolecules. And then number 5, identify why cells need minerals and water. So these are the objectives under your lecture. So hindi dito kasama ang ating laboratory. So water is one of the inorganic molecule, or it is a compound which is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 atom of oxygen. So as we all knew that cell is the cellular membrane is one of the organelle which is found in your cell. So your water, so if you read your module, it is about 70% na needed ng ating cell ay water. In the outside of the cell, there is a presence of your water, and the inside of the cell, there is a water also. The outside of the cell, that is what you call the extracellular fluids, and then the inside of the cell is what you call the intracellular fluids. Even your cytosol is considered as an aqueous solution. Okay, aqueous, which means it is also a water. In your definition of your module 2, it says that your water is a polar bond. Wala siyang covalent bond. So let me start with the discussion of what you call the covalent bond, which means that when you say covalent bond class, which means that they shared electrons. Okay, so this is water. Okay, your water with a formula of H2O. So there are 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. On the last part, or on the last shell of your oxygen, they are kulang ng 2 electrons, and then your hydrogen ay may kulang siyang 1 electron. So anong gagawin? They shared electrons, so didikit sila sa isa't isa, and they form a covalent bond. But how about when you say the polar bond? Okay, so your water is a polar bond, while in terms and electronegativities, aside from those that they are partially positively charged and negatively charged, also with the electronegativities. Okay, so the electronegativity of your hydrogen is 2.1, and then the electronegativity of your oxygen is 3.5. So if you subtract this 3.5 from 2.1, ano yung kanyang result? Which means that this is 1.4. So if we gamitin natin ang ating table, it is here. So 1.01 to 2.0, which is under the covalent, which is very polar. Okay. But there are other, that's your assignment. What are the properties of water? Why they are considered as a polar bonds? So this one. So let us go back with your cell membrane. As I have said, your cell membrane, the water which is found outside of the cell membrane is what you call the extracellular, and then the fluids or the water which is found inside of the cell is what you call the intracellular. The heads or the hydrophilic heads, these are attached to your sa inyong water kasi they are hydrophilic, which means that they are not afraid of water. While the tails, which is found inside of the cell membrane, they are hydrophobic kasi they are afraid of water. Okay, so we are now with your pH scale. Okay, so your water here is with a pH level of 7. So if this is less than 7, that is, which means that it is acid. So the gastric juice is the strongest acid here with a pH level of 1. Okay, the gastric juice, ang hydrochloric acid ay isa sa kanyang ipinoproduce. Okay, how about if it is more than 7? So the hydrochloric, it is under the base kasi that is more than 7. Okay, why, kailan mo ang water is considered as an acid? If this in your module mali doon, because your ammonia is with the formula of NH3, it is a base. Okay, if this base is combined with if this ammonia is combined with the water, the product here is that your NH3 becomes NH4. Okay, so saan nanggaling yung isang hydrogen? Came from water. So ang natitira na lang talaga sa water is OH. Okay, meron silang positive and then meron silang negative. Okay, so dahil ang ating water ay nagbigay or nagdonate sa ating base, So this water, is considered as an acid. How about water is considered as a base? So opposite siya, ang water ay pag nag-accept na ng hydrogen, okay, from the acid, which is the hydrochloric acid as an example, 'di ba? Ang hydrochloric acid is one of the gastric juice. Siya ay magdo-donate ng kanyang hydrogen sa water. This water is not now H2O but H3O. Then nag-alone na yung chlorine. The hydrogen now ay wala na. So, if this water accepts an hydrogen, this water is considered as a base. But, if a water donates an hydrogen to an ammonium or to an ammonia or a base, siya ay considered as an acid. Okay. So, how about when you say the buffers, which is included in your module? So, when you say buffers class, it is the one that neutralizes the acidity or the alkalinity of a substance. Okay, so like for example here, if you combine the acetic acid with sodium acetate, okay, your sodium acetate is a base and your acetic acid is an acid, so mag-neutralize siya, and that is what you call the buffers. So dapat in the case of antacid, 'di ba? Pag merong kayong hyperacidity class, ano ba tinitake nyo? Crimal S. Your crimal S is an antacid, which means that it is a buffer that neutralizes the acidity in your stomach, which is nagle-lessen ng hyperacidity. So how about if we apply this in psychology? So sino bang nakakaalam about the Pilgrim's experiment? So it is about the psychologist na siya ay nag-aral about the obedience of a student. So you can check this in your YouTube. So here, for example, when the teacher and the learner were in different rooms. Kasi ang nangyayari kasi noon ay sa experiment nila, the participants ay hinati, and then the teachers here ay nasa kabilang room, and then the students ay nasa kabilang room. Pag may maling magawa yung students, ay pinaparusahan sila ng teacher. Okay, so you have to read that also. That's your assignment. That is under the psychology. So this will be included in your with our discussion next week. Okay. However, where they are in the same room, no physical buffer. So, ibig sabihin, wala doon na pagpaparusahan, pag nagkamali sila, paparusahan sila, ano ba, the obedience rate ay 40%. Nagda-drop. Why? Kasi sumusunod lang naman sila doon dahil may parusa. Pero pag walang physical buffer or wala namang pangtakot doon na ilalagay sila sa electric shock, okay, hindi susunod yung estudyante. Okay, yung kanyang buffer o ang kanyang obedience rate ay magda-drop, hindi na susunod ng estudyante kasi wala namang magti-trigger para sundin ng estudyante. Okay, so like for example, inside the classroom, di ba? Para mag-aim ka because you have a scholarship, ano gagawin mo? You have to study harder. Why? Because you have something to reach. So, may reason kung bakit mo gagawin yon. Okay, so here in the buffer, a thing or person that reduces a shock or protect something against difficulties. So ano ba 'yon? Hindi sila mag-undergo ng electric shock kung sila ay susunod or sila ay sasagot ng tama. So your buffer is the one that reduces ng cause. Okay? So to protect someone. So support from families and friends. So like for example, inside the families, if there is a problem, okay, if you are go hand in hand, di ba, isa-isa kayo nagtutulungin, that is what you call the buffer. It lessen the stress. Okay, so she often had to act as a buffer between a father and a son. So pag siya ay laging naging buffer, pag nag-aaway yung father at saka yung son, dapat nag-neutralize siya. Wala siyang kakampihan, and that is what you call the buffer. A buffering effect is a process in which a psychosocial resources reduce the impact of life stress. Okay. Excuse class. Okay, having such a resource contributes to adjustment. So, the negative effects ay nalilesen because of that buffer. So, like for example, if ang isang tao ay nag-undergo ng depression, okay, ano ba ang gagawin nyo? You have to makinig ka lang. You act as a buffer. Ano mangyayari doon? Nababawasan yung sakit sa kanyang dibdib or nababawasan yung kanyang nararamdaman, and you act as a buffer. So which means na kahit nakikinig ka lang class, as a buffer class, nalilesen yung kanyang depression. Okay, so like for example, here the teachers. Ang teacher, isa siyang buffer. Why? Kasi sineparate niya yung dalawang nag-aaway na kids. Okay, in a lunch table. Why? Kasi magti-trigger yun. Pag pinagsama mo yun, magkakalmutan yan. Okay, so you act as a buffer. So in your pH, okay, so ang buffer siya yung nag-neutralize ng acidity at saka alkalinity of something. So we are now with your macromolecules. So when you say macromolecules or biomolecules, they are called as the large molecules. Diba? So, one of the macromolecules are your proteins. Your proteins are made up of 20 amino acids. Okay, so they are classified into 4. So these are will be elaborated in your protein. Okay, so they are divided into 4, the primary, secondary, tertiary, and then the quaternary. How about when you say the lipids? So your lipids is found in your cell membrane. It is made up of lipid bilayer. Okay, so your lipids are made up of saturated and your unsaturated fatty acids. So these are more elaborated, okay, in your in your sa mga parating nating lessons. So the monosaccharides, these are under the carbohydrates. So these are the glucose, fructose, and then the galactose. They're called as monosaccharides, which means that they are the monomer of carbohydrates, but mostly ang ginagamit is the glucose. Okay. So the stored energy or yung excess glucose natin, okay, it is converted into a kinetic energy kasi stored energy. Pero ang stored energy, but if you're not converted into a kinetic energy, it becomes a glycogen. So yun yung mga adipose tissues natin. Okay, so your nucleic acid, so one of the macromolecules, so they are made up of phosphoric acid, the sugars, and then the nitrogenous bases. So they are made up of 5 nitrogenous bases kasi yung thymine nyo ay pagdating sa RNA that is under the uracil. Okay, how about the nutrients? As I have mentioned before, the food that we have eaten or the vitamins, these are absorbed in your small intestine. At ito ay distribute into the bloodstream in order to distribute the nutrients. So the nutrients came from your 3 food macromolecules, from your vitamin, mineral, and then the water. So your water is included here as your nutrients. Okay. So these are the nutrients are divided into 2, the macronutrients and then the micronutrients. So when you say macronutrients, from the food that we have eaten, the 3, the carbohydrates, lipids, and then your protein. While your micronutrients, these are the good sources. So like for example, your vitamins. Okay, so yun yung mga makukuha natin aside from your macromolecules. So these are the macronutrients. So these are the carbohydrates, proteins, and then your fats. Okay, how about when you say the micronutrients, the vitamins, one of those is that these are the organic micronutrients. So your organic micronutrients, so they are divided, or the vitamins are divided into okay. So this one, so nagkaroon ng problema with uploaded of this of this slide. Okay, so class, I have to explain this orally without the slide. Okay, so your micronutrients are divided into 2. So these are the vitamins and then your minerals. And your vitamins, they are organic micronutrients, while your minerals, they are inorganic micronutrients. Your vitamins are divided into 2, the water-soluble vitamins and then the content fats or the lipid vitamins. Okay. How about your minerals? Your minerals also are divided into macro minerals and then the micro minerals. So pag ang katawan natin ay gusto niya ng more than 100 macro minerals, okay, so you are considered under the macro minerals. But pag less than, that is under the under the micro minerals. Okay? So you have to see that in your PowerPoint presentation. Okay? So wala talaga siya class. So that is the end in your recorded discussion, but you can see the last part of your slides in your PowerPoint presentation.